Welcome to the Amicable Divorce Network podcast. My name is Tracy Ann Moore-Grant, and I'm the founder of the Amicable Divorce Network. Our podcast is here to educate those before, during, and after divorce, as well as divorce professionals, about all of the issues that impact a family law case. We are here to educate you about difficult topics, provide you new information, and also give solutions for how to navigate all of the issues in family law and still bring your family law case to an efficient conclusion. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Amicable Divorce Network podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Ann Moore-Grant, and I'm the founder of the Amicable Divorce Network. And if you've been joining us for a while, welcome to season 3 of the podcast. We are going back to our original format for the podcast and having on many interesting guests and interesting topics to help you get through divorce. Anything before, during, and after divorce that makes your divorce easier is what we are very passionate about. So thank you for tuning in. I am joined today by Jay Skibbens, and he is a co-parenting coach and consultant. And if you have been on social media for 5 minutes and looked at anything about divorce, you probably will recognize Jay if you're watching this video, and certainly recognize his story when he starts talking. He is very passionate as well about helping people co-parent and divorce better. Jay, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Jay, for those who don't know you or have forgotten, describe yourself, introduce yourself to everybody, and tell us what got you into this wonderful space of divorce.
Well, thank you. It's divine intervention, right? Like that's the name of the game. I feel like from childhood, I've been set on this path. Like my mom was a single mom. My dad wasn't around at all growing up. So I got firsthand lived knowledge of what a lot of single moms go through. Like lack of resources, being in survival mode, trying to do everything for everybody else, and then having so little left for herself. And then, I grew up, found myself, I'm not sure what the rating is on this podcast, but like in a situationship.
Not a lot of kids listen to our divorce podcast, so you're free to talk.
I ended up in a friends with benefits situation, and to do with a lot of my own wounds and trauma. Sexual relationships were like one of my biggest vices. And with that woman, we ended up having children. And we had 2 children. And then when my oldest was 2.5, I found out that he wasn't biologically mine. And it was like an earth-shattering moment where, my identity as a dad, everything I thought a dad was, I no longer was. The lies and the betrayal in the relationship, the anger, the emotions. So really, it forced me to face a lot of the past, a lot of the wounds, a lot of my own history that I hadn't been dealing with. And then, years into co-parenting, I got licensed as a life coach, and then I started talking on Instagram and on the internet. And I was a parenting coach because I've always been a parent-focused person. I've always worked with kids. I was a teacher for a couple of years. But it wasn't until that I hit co-parenting as a topic that I realized there was this void.
Yeah.
Where people will tell you how to get divorced.
Yeah.
And nowadays, they'll tell you all about the narcissist.
Oh, yes, that's very popular.
But what we don't hear is how do we co-parent every day? How do I deal with the triggers of him being late or her not letting me see the kids? How do I deal with the stuff that, it's written in the plan, but we don't always follow the plan, and I'm guilty and angry and anxious and scared all of the time. What do I do then? So that's where I come in. So that's what I do.
And that's exactly our passion. I think one of the reasons for the Amicable Divorce Network was a pivot away from traditional contested divorce, where you have 2 parents of children who in the court system have to say terrible things about one another to advance their position. That's how court works. There's no, hey, we're both good people and we just have different ideas. Which one has the best idea? It is a mudslinging match, after which the very next day you are expected to be model co-parents, under this new parenting plan that you have, or then you're punished for having these emotions that you're touching on, which are completely normal, especially if you just exited toxic litigation. But before we move on, I just want to clarify a point so that everybody understands. What's your relationship with the child that you found out was not your biological child?
So now I'm the primary parent. Like, that's part of like this whole story is like, and it's not because mom is negligent. Like, they have a great mom. We get along well. It's just how life broke. It's she moved an hour away. She's now remarried. They have kids of their own. And it just like, while things were happening, she ended up getting a job where, she needed to be trained all of the time. So like, it just fell upon me to have the kids more. And then it's just worked out that way. So there's a lot of people who get disappointed because they find out I have primary care. And they're like, Jay, how did you get primary care? How did you do that? And I'm like, well, I kind of just let it happen. There's no secret. I didn't fight for it. This is just how the universe worked.
And I just think that's so important, because a lot of people in this situation would lose contact or rights or not have the child who's not biologically theirs included in their parenting plan. But you stepped in and stepped up, so to speak, and are the father figure, and always have been, for that child. So I think that's important to point out that he's part of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So from, just so many dramatic events, you have stepped into this place of really helping people with those complicated emotions. And so we see that often. And I just want to point out, I say this all of the time, but I'm a lawyer. I'm also a mediator and do lots of different things. I am not a coach and I'm not a mental health professional. So a lot of people go to their lawyer with these complicated emotions, and we are not the best equipped, and we are the most expensive person in the room. So, explain how you can step into this process and add, value and insight and real expertise to a situation.
Well, the number one thing is lived experience.
Yeah.
Because what I find, and I'm sure that you found it, and I still find it consistently, is that these emotions eat people alive. Like, they're the driving force behind why somebody's emailing you or talking to you about why they need to change the parenting plan, because they're scared of the impact of the other parent, or they're scared to make a mistake. And what I find is that those emotions become the driving force behind everything. And then that person completely abandons their values, their life, their path, their abilities. They don't trust themselves anymore. And they've just completely lost themselves. And the reason I know that is because that's how I lived. Like, it was a lot more anger. I was angry. I felt betrayed. I felt like I couldn't trust her. So a lot of my decisions were based around like proving her wrong and exposing her, and they were fueled by anger. But I realized after a while that, like, you know what? She was doing okay. Did I like all of her life choices? No, but like, she was living a decent to good life. She got remarried. Like, she was being a good mom. She was showing up. Like, everything was happening the way it should. And my kids were actually doing pretty well too. It was me that was suffering. So the reason that I feel like I have this expert level knowledge is because I had to save myself first. So these are still the things I do on a daily basis. Like, I have a guide, like a trigger method guide that I can share with everybody, but it's
Please.
I literally just used this method earlier this week because as I'm building my business now, like, my co-parenting stress is next to zero.
That's awesome.
It is.
Teach me your ways.
Yeah, but now it's like, now I have business building stress and relationship stress, and the emotions and triggers are still the same. So I still use the same methods that got me through the co-parenting emotions, but now my emotions around like the fear of building a business and the inadequacy or imposter syndrome. So it's just like these, like, they talk about the things you should have learned in kindergarten. Those same things apply to emotions, and that's where I meet people at.
Are there any top tips that you would share with us today for our listeners? Like, top one, top two, thing that you have found to be really helpful?
Yeah. So the number one thing is that once you start to realize that most of your emotions in co-parenting happen between the space of like your expectations for what should happen and the reality of what does happen, like you start to understand like where your emotions are and why they're so big and why they don't really change. So like a way to explain that is, if it's your birthday and you're not expecting anybody to celebrate you, but then you come home and all of your friends jump from behind the furniture and they celebrate you, that emotion is surprise. It's the space between not expecting anything and getting the surprise party. That surprise, that's excitement, that's the emotion.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're a co-parent and you ask your co-parent, hey, Billy said he wants to do soccer. Are you cool with, him doing soccer? And you expect them to be like, yeah, sure, that's great. Like, yeah, let's go ahead with that. But you either get silence or, 3 text messages or 3 emails telling you why, like, this, you shouldn't be making unilateral decisions. Why are you always thinking that you know best? Why do you do it this way? That's the reality. That space is frustration, it's anxiety, and people try so hard to focus their energy on changing the outcome, on changing the person's response. You should respond, or you should be on board. We should be on the same page. People waste so much time and energy trying to control what they don't have control over, when the expectation is like, you wouldn't have done it that way. Yeah. But this is how your co-parent acts.
Yeah. Focusing on the should is dangerous ground.
Right. So what I help my clients with is like, we don't need to get rid of we don't need to get rid of expectations, but let's work to match the expectations to the history that we have. Like, stop expecting them to do something they've never shown you to do. Start expecting them to, like, if they don't give you a decision, understand that, and then for my clients, it's like, then make the decision and move forward with your life. So to me, it's like understanding that, and then if we can piggyback that with, like, then 99% of what your co-parent says to you is about them. And what I call that is their raw hamburger, like their raw, unprocessed emotions.
Right.
So if you take that raw hamburger and you eat it, you're going to get sick.
Some people like that, but...
I mean, that's fair, but like, I would get sick. Like, that would... I would end up in the bathroom for hours. So it's like... So to me, what I help people with, it is. And it's their insecurity, it's their fear, it's their anger, and if you eat theirs, you're going to internalize it, and then, like we've talked about, then the emotions are what's at the root of everything.
Yeah, I'm always, I hear so many clients and they're so frustrated, especially if I'm helping them post-divorce, or they have a modification, or, some other kind of action that comes up, or they just need advice. And I think I'm always telling them, don't expect your spouse to become a better or different person simply because you divorced them. You have to deal with what you got, what you married. It's a very rare circumstance for somebody, like in your position, or to go through a divorce, to evolve and work on themselves. And it does happen, but it's incredibly rare. So you have to think about who was the person that you had the relationship with, and what they were like. And, so they're not going to be what you want them to be simply because the relationship is broken up.
Exactly. And I want to give some insight that I would have never thought of before I started coaching. Okay. And what happens is that most of the people that I work with, I work mostly with moms, and a lot of them have people-pleasing tendencies. So they were conditioned, literally raised from childhood, to always be looking out for other people's emotions. Like, to be always they're the fixers, they're the solvers. That's why I work with a lot of nurses, a lot of teachers, a lot of helpers. Yeah. Right? And those people, I work with moms, men do this as well, but those people tend to attract people who project their emotions, okay? And the reason that works initially is because this people pleaser who's always on the out, looking out for other people's emotions, has now found somebody who projects their emotions, okay? So that relationship actually works. It makes both people feel good. One person is taking care of the other person is getting their emotions met. So initially that can really feel good to them. What happens is that then they have a baby, okay? And this people pleaser who's on the outlook was only looking out for that other person's emotions. They weren't caring about their own. They're always on the back burner. Now there's a baby, so now there's 2 people, 2 humans to pay attention to. And now it's now they're getting this realization of oh, this other person doesn't act the way that I want them to towards the baby. Yeah. So now there's this conflict between I take care of other people's emotions, but this person that I married isn't taking care of the baby the way that I want them to, or it's mismatched. And that's where a lot of tension happens. That's actually where a lot of abuse happens. That's where a lot of cheating happens. Yeah. Because this relationship that used to make sense, used to work, has now added a dynamic that throws everything out the window. And when people are like in that situation, they go to frustration, go to like their triggered state.
Yes.
And then that's not like they don't know how to build past that because they've never been taught how to.
Yeah. You're touching on just such a familiar dynamic for me as a divorce lawyer when people come into the office that, you know, if they were the person who was having, I always say there's sort of two parties. There's the lover and the beloved.
Okay.
And so there's somebody who's always giving and taking care of, and then there's somebody who's always receiving that. And so, you know, in the similar situation to what you're describing, then when you add in another beloved, you know, you have the lover getting completely burned out because, you know, the beloved, one of them's a baby that can't do anything. The other one is an adult who isn't accustomed to doing anything. And now they step out because they need more love,
right. Yeah.
you know, and they start seeking that elsewhere.
Sharing it either. They were getting 100% of it, and now they're getting probably 20% of it at best.
Yeah.
So, and it's so interesting just how, like, once you break it down, and like, the other thing that I really help my clients with is the perspective that one isn't better than the other. I think that a lot of people, and I say moms, and I talk about moms and two moms because that's who I work with. Because there's so much narcissistic content, like that's just the buzzy word right now. It's like they're the villain. Narcissist, the man, the beloved, has somehow turned into the villain. And therefore, the person who's loving is the good guy. And that's like one of the hardest narratives for people to break free from. But once they do, it's like they want to feel safe. They want to feel loved. And that's what I want to feel. So like people always try to understand their co-parent. How can he do that? How could she do that? The more you can understand yourself, the better you're going to understand them.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you're pointing that out because even in my practice, which I don't go to court anymore, I'm a non-litigation family law attorney and mediator. I only do uncontested and amicable divorce and help people solve things outside the court system. I still continually have clients coming to me saying the spouse is a narcissist. And that is such a statistically rare actual diagnosis.
Right.
They may just be a jerk, or they may just be the person who is the beloved and now they're acting out. You know, and now, you know, you're seeing these list of symptoms and things on the internet. It is important to really not focus on going through a legal process to get this person that diagnosis, because in the end, it doesn't matter. It really is, you need the tools on how to deal with this person. It doesn't matter what their labels are in any way whatsoever. The court doesn't care. They don't pull out, oh, a narcissist, we got a special thing for them right here. That's not how it happens or works, and it just isn't helpful. What's helpful is to gain skills to learn how to co-parent with this person moving into the future. So yeah, the narcissist thing just drives me wild because I'm like, okay, well, tell me what that means to you. Let's unpack what's going on here. And that's really what's more important than, you know, they have this label on them because it's a buzzword right now.
Yeah, and what you just said is like, tell me what that means to you is such a powerful question, because that works with narcissism. That honestly works with abuse. And I obviously as a man am conscious of talking about abuse with women in particular, because I'm not ever going to ask that question to invalidate it. But there's so often that somebody will say abuse, and then it's almost like anything that gets said after that is like the other person's written off. Like, there's no redeeming qualities. But then you have to co-parent with that person. So it's like, let's not just write them off because something happened. But I want to come back to, like, there's something that I've been developing that touches on that idea of narcissism and like why we're failing people by preaching to them that their co-parent's a narcissist. Because let's just say, and this is for the sake of this, exercise, that they are a narcissist. Like, you got them diagnosed, whatever. What would the narcissist want most? Would they want you to create your entire life, organize your entire life with them as the main figure? Because that's what you said and what other people are told, how to co-parent with a narcissist, how to set boundaries with a narcissist. A narcissist would love to still be the main character. So what people are actually doing by organizing their entire life with this other person as the main figure is they're feeding into the thing that they think they're trying to empower themselves through. Ironically, it also like plays into the patriarchy a lot too, that like women are staying hyper vigilant to what the man needs, what the man, how he's gonna react. So the
Wish I had a bell to ring here, everybody listen.
I mean, because so like then what? And again, since I work primarily with moms, the biggest empowerment we get to is they can make decisions like outside of the co-parent, like that their primary processor isn't how is he going to react,
right.
What is he going to think, because once you get that raw hamburger analogy down and you start to understand that like you can set a boundary, understand they're going to complain, and then follow through with your boundary, boom. Yeah. Then we don't have to worry if we upset them, because if they get upset, that's probably a good sign it's a good boundary.
And I think it's important to know that generally speaking, your boundary is your parenting plan. And so when you actually go through a legal process and you get a parenting plan, this will identify sometimes communication protocols, who has decision making, when the pickup is, who's doing the transportation. It takes a lot of these little details and writes them down so that you aren't being vested with having to make all of those decisions and manage their reaction. You just need to read the document, follow the document. These are your court-ordered boundaries. And if this person has a bad reaction to that, really it's like there's a force field around you that is your parenting plan, not my problem. I'm following the court order, and so it's important to understand the power of that document, be fine with following it, and also make sure when you're developing it that you do it in a very meaningful way that will work for you and for this other parent. I see a lot of people who just want to get their divorce or their proceeding for paternity or whatever done as soon as possible.
Yeah.
We just want this done, and I'll send them a parenting plan, and in 10 minutes, oh, that looks good. I'm like, you did not read this.
Well, and to touch on that, it's, and I'm sure that you hear this often, because this is what I hear too. People do have the parenting plan, but then when asked, like, why didn't you follow it, or why didn't you hold that boundary? The answer is almost always, well, I was worried that they would, or, I was concerned that my kid would feel this. It's this idea that, it's tough for the person that we're helping to feel the uncomfortable emotion. And especially since we talked about, like, I would imagine that we both work with a lot of people-pleasing tendency type people. So it's a lot of what I help people with also is getting a bit more comfortable with allowing other people to experience that discomfort. It's a lot harder to hold a boundary if you're unwilling to let other people feel discomfort. So it's, what I help with, like that, your ability to follow through with a parenting plan when the other person's upset has a lot to do with how good you feel about yourself.
Yeah, I think where we see this the most is where maybe the more difficult parent is asking for flexibility on something or a change, and you have this parenting plan, and you're like, well, I could do that, but I would have to leave work 15 minutes early, and I'd have to drive over here in traffic, and I'd have to do this and that. And it might be actually something that's very not easy for them to do, but they may say, sure, I'll adjust this just to avoid, making the other person upset or disappointed, or something like that, when really they have to focus on, is this going to impact my job or my day? We already have this arrangement. And it is being able to sit with saying no, or this is the rule that we've established, because when you separate from somebody, you no longer are sort of in that sphere of immediate angry emotions. Certainly there's those text messages and there's those emails, and that's a whole other podcast. But, like no is a full sentence, and, you can say that and they should be, dealing with themselves. But you're talking about something that you're developing, and I keep getting you sidetracked from that. So if you want to go back to the first thing.
But it's a way, because like what you're saying, and I think that right now there's an ice storm. Like when people listen to this, it might be done, but like what you're saying, this ice storm, I've had so many people in my DMs, I've had clients dealing with that the weather has impacted their exchange days. And what people are, like what I'm really wanting to get across to people is that, I agree. Like, parenting plans are important. They create structure in the world. They're like speed limit signs. If we didn't have them and you could drive whatever speed on the street you wanted, like there would be so many more crashes. Like we'd have dangerous streets. But at the same time, if I'm going 36 and a 35, I don't expect to be pulled over. Like, there is a little bit of wiggle room there.
Right.
But it's the people. So what I really help with, and what I'm talking about with the development, is I'm really focusing on, can your nervous system handle this? And so many people are living in such heightened uncertainty. Like everything about co-parent is steeped in uncertainty. You didn't expect this to happen. This was not part of the plan. Very few people, if any, saw a model of co-parenting growing up, so there's no context. So literally everything that you're going to do, you're doing without a guide, you're doing without previous practice. And when that's the case, everything is also steeped in fear.
Yeah.
So that's what puts so many people, and again, moms in particular, into hypervigilance and into that survival mode. So what the grounded response method is the tool that I'm really, pushing out to people, because it's a simple 5-step process that like any trigger that comes up, that you can work through it. So the grounded response method, first, it's simply just naming that you are triggered. So many people, like, they see the text, they see the name pop up, and they like immediately their heart starts to race.
Yeah.
And they start spiraling into like, okay, what could it be? What did I do wrong? Like, what is happening? And just being able to like take that and be like, oh my gosh, like this is what being triggered is.
Yeah.
Like this is, I'm triggered right now. So just naming it starts to take away its power. That's step one. Step two is pausing, okay?
Yeah.
Taking a deep breath, going for a walk, splashing some cold water on your face. Like so many people have that impulse. They see the name, they get the shakes, and they read it immediately. If you read that message immediately in that anxious state, it doesn't matter what the message says. It's going to feel like an attack. It's going to feel personal.
Yeah, if you're already here, now you're...
Right. Like it could just be like, hey, can we switch weekends? But if you've been spiraling, like this guy always does this, you're going to read that as he's trying to take time away from me, or he's going to, do this with the kids. So the third thing, and this is like the biggest part, and what people, if there's one thing that everybody hears from this podcast and anybody hears from me ever, the third part is that you have to sit with that feeling. Like you have to be willing to sit with anger. And people are really uncomfortable sitting with anger, sitting with sadness, sitting with frustration, because emotions are energy. And some people don't like the feeling that like they want to punch through a wall. Like that's what anger does to our bodies. Like, I want to break something, I want to hurt something. And you might not feel like you're an angry person, but we all experience emotions. And if you're not willing to allow yourself to feel something, you're just suppressing it, and it's just going to come back up later when you don't want it to. So being able to sit with that, the next step is, again, attached to that. So the fourth part is meeting that need, whatever it is that you're looking for, internally. So the number one thing that my clients do is journal. So we journal a lot. Like I fill up, a journal probably every 5 months, and I'm not in the thick of co-parenting. That's like life stuff. That's business, that's relationships, that's parenting. But a lot of the time, you're actually wanting respect from your co-parent, or validation, or acknowledgement. That fourth step is about, how can I acknowledge myself? What would respecting myself look like right now? And to me, that's where we bring self-empowerment back into it. That breaks the cycle that you're attached to your co-parent's response, or attached to your co-parent's emotions. And then the fifth part is, then you make a grounded decision. Like, do I actually need to read this text? I can tell you from the first line, you could probably read it in email and know from the first line, do I need to read any more? Like, do I need to keep reading? Is this maybe you've read it. Is this an email I actually need to respond to? Okay? I've asked them a question, they haven't responded. I know it's uncomfortable, but maybe this is where I actually make a decision and I actually do sign our kid up for that sport. Okay? So like, to me, I want to get people to a grounded state before they move forward, or else they'll stay in that reactive state, and that just perpetuates the cycle. Yeah,
and those are great tips. I was looking away because I was writing them all down, so that's very, very good. And I think to, sort of focus all of that, we also want people to making child-focused decisions, so when I talk with clients, it's like, what is best for your child? Not a lot of people come from what is best for me. I'm going to have to see their face. I'm going to be inconvenienced. I'm going to have to pay $20 more, whatever it is. What is, and when you're making grounded decisions, you can really take into account what is best, for the child versus, your emotions, your feelings, different things like that. And so all of those tips are absolutely excellent. Thank you so much for sharing them.
You're welcome. And to touch on that, like, and again, speaking like primarily to moms,
Yeah.
one thing that I see often in the name I've given it is the emotional avatar.
Yeah.
And this, just happened the other day when I was coaching, is that like a mom like asked me like, okay, like what's the line? Like what's the line that's like, is this a child decision or is this a, me decision? Because she was talking about how she didn't want her child to face a certain type of emotion.
Yeah.
And like she didn't want him to be disappointed. And I was like, okay, well, how do you feel with disappointment?
Right.
And she was like, well, I hate it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, then you're probably leaning towards trying to make a decision so that you don't feel what you don't want him to feel. So again, like I sound like a broken record and I'm okay with that. You will have so much more peace. You will have a better co-parenting relationship. You will feel like a better parent the more you're able to sit with your emotions. Because our kids are going to face disappointments. Our kids are going to face...
And should. I mean, that's part of life.
Or else, guess what? If you raised a child, especially a boy, who can't hear the word no and doesn't face disappointment, who does that boy grow up into, if not the people that were, divorcing? So it feels so complicated when you're in it.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important that there's people like you and like me that are outside of it that can see the honest simplicity of some of these ideas. And that's why, like, if you're working with somebody, they should be giving you repeated answers. Like the answers shouldn't change based on every situation. You should find somebody who has a method that applies like across multiple things because you're usually facing similar problems.
Yeah. Well, this was an absolutely great conversation. Thank you so much. For all of you who are listening, Jay is a member of the Amicable Divorce Network. You can find him in our directory. But Jay, what is the best way for people to reach out to you after they listen to this and know that they want to work with you?
So right now, the best place is social media on Instagram. So at Jay Skibbens, just my name. And the cool thing is that, when this episode launches, the middle of February, I'll be launching a co-parent university, which is a low ticket, access place to learn these things. I'll have videos. There'll be monthly workshops. We said that in the show notes we'll put the wait list.
Yeah.
So anybody who's interested in joining that or at least getting more information on that, join the wait list. So either my Instagram or that wait list are the best ways right now.
Wonderful. So if you're driving, just save the episode and know that you can come back later and get all the information that you need. We will have it in the show notes. If you liked what you heard today, and I'm sure everybody found it amazingly helpful, please hit the follow button for this and like the episode so that more people get to see this great content. Jay, thank you so much for being a member of Amicable Divorce Network and for all of this great information that you share with not just us, but your individual clients as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. See you soon.